Let's just start at the very beginning. How did you find water polo? I mean, I know that like water polo as a sport is a Western US thing. Like I'm from
Hmm.
the Eastern United States and water polo is simply not a thing. So, how old were you when you found the sport?
Yeah. So I started just as I was going into high school. I have two older brothers and they both played water polo in high school. And so I saw what they were doing and I was like going into high school, I was like, that looks fun. I really want to do that. And this is at a time in Central California where there weren't girls teams yet. This is what, early mid 90s. Water polo wasn't even an Olympic sport for women just yet. It started in 2000 at the Sydney Games. So it was just starting, just like on the cusp of, I think flourishing in the area too, and within the US, particularly on the West Coast. So that's how I started. And it's honestly so hot in Central California during the summer. I would just love swimming in the pool. So it was just natural for me to be like, I want to go do that. Whatever they're doing in the pool, it looks really fun. Let's give it a go. Let's try it out. Yeah.
Are you the youngest of three?
Yes. Yeah.
Did you feel any pressure to follow your brothers, or was it just like a genuine interest?
At the time, it felt like a real genuine interest. Absolutely. It was, I liked what they're doing. I admired them. One of them was actually a goalkeeper too. And so when I saw what he was doing, I was like, well, that looks fun. I want to be a goalkeeper. I want to do that. And so when we had our first club team just before I was a freshman in high school, someone's like, oh, there's a spot to go in the goal. You want to do it, Jamie? And I was like, sure, yeah. It was really exciting. I look back at it now and I'm like, well, there's probably like some type of competitiveness. Sure, of course. I was probably like wanting to do what they do, like, of course. But at the time, yeah, I was like, oh, I love it. Yeah.
What was it about being in goal that appealed to you, like specifically?
Thanks for asking that question. There's something about, I think, being on a team. There's something really special about being on a team, right? I mean, there's so many skills you learn. Not that you're thinking that as and I wasn't thinking about it in high school or when I was starting. It was more just like, that sounds fun. I can play with friends. I can make friends, right? There's that aspect. But I think I'm also just the type of person that I like to be really competitive on my own too. I like solitude. I like to go my own path, go my own way, which I'm sure we'll get into in that topic too. So I felt like being a goalie was the best of both worlds for me. I got to be around people, but I didn't have to be in it all the time. It's almost like being at a party. You don't have to be in the middle of the party. You can be on the outskirts sometimes and just watch and observe and do your own thing. And that was me. Like I loved it. And then there was this other aspect that was not just the social or just, my own introvert, extrovert kind of personality, but it was also this space of competitiveness, this huge, huge challenge. Like you're the last line of defense. What's that like? You have all this pressure on you. What's that like if you choose to, think of it like that or just think of it as really fun and an awesome challenge. So that challenge really intrigued me, I think more than I realized at the time too.
Were you always playing goal? I mean, you kind of alluded to finding water polo and like immediately going into goal. Is that how it happened?
Almost. Yeah. The summer I started playing, I found goalie. And then my first year, freshman year, we didn't have a girls' team. I played on a boys' team, like JV, boys' team. And I was in the goal with, there was a couple other goalies too. And I'd play in the shallow end because I didn't know how to tread water fully yet. I mean, I was submerging, going so low that just being in the shallow end was more comfortable at the time and worked better. So yeah, I think it's something that just clicked. It clicked as in like I loved it, didn't click as in like I was really good at it yet. Obviously, I mean, that stuff takes time. At least for me, it did. Yeah.
At what point did you realize that you could do this in college?
Ooh,
I mean, you
I
went from
remember.
playing on a
Yeah.
boys' team to playing in college.
Yeah. In a situation where I loved, I mean, with UCLA, it was such an honor, such a gift to be able to play there, play. Adam Krikorian was our coach. He's an amazing human being, amazing coach. And the journey, at the time, it was, I think it's, gosh, it's putting in the work every day, of course. We hear that phrase, but it was just going a little bit at a time. I didn't know what was going to happen. But I think I loved the game so much. I was that person who was like sleeping with my water polo ball or just like laying in my bedroom on the floor, throwing the water polo ball up in the air. Like it was just I always wanted to get better and better and better, but it didn't feel like work. Like it wasn't not fun, right? It was something I loved to do. So that was a contributing factor for sure. And then luckily the coaches in my area encouraged me to try out for the local it was like the local pipeline teams, like these tournaments to or training weekends to see if you'd make the next team for like the USA cadet team or to get into the pipeline essentially. And I think that that really helped me just trying playing and competing against people beyond just my local area too, and having and getting to know and coaches getting to know me better too. So that definitely helped. And then some active outreach, me reaching out to coaches saying, I'd like to play for your team. Is that an option? That's the way it worked at the time. So it was really fun doing that.
I mean, you finished your brewing career with three NCAA titles and as a four-time All-American. I mean, I feel like you were on everyone's radar, were you not? How much actual outreach and pitching yourself did you have to do with a resume like that?
I think it's like being that it feels so young now that it's at that time I'm so not aware of how things are actually working, about what coaches actually have. You're kind of in your own little sphere, your own little land of being, what is it, like 18 years old, 17. This is my world. And it felt really small at the time. And so it felt like just very serendipitous, like me reaching out to, Adam Krikorian and saying, I want to play for the team. And yes, here's the process, of course, for application and obviously grades and there's a whole process, of course. But then the real conversations too, having conversations with them and seeing if there's already, starting goalkeepers, for example, like, do I have an opportunity to start if I excel, asking those questions and learning, is there an opportunity for a scholarship? So there was active conversation too. So great question. I'm not really aware. I was so not aware of really what was probably really happening with the adults. I didn't take
Hey,
myself as an adult at the time.
well, it's easy. Like when you're in college and you're playing for a college team and you're doing incredibly well. I mean, it's easy to be like, I'm an adult. I'm good at this.
Yeah.
But then you have higher powers like Team USA, who you're also trying to make a good impression with. What was your introduction to their process?
Yeah, so that luckily did start in high school with one of those training camps that I went to, and I was able to make while in high school I think it was the youth team. No, I'm thinking about it. It was the youth team. So we got to play at a championship in Canada. It was, and I actually got to meet some of my future teammates at UCLA. I didn't know at the time, and also future teammates on Team USA, which was amazing. One of the women on there, Natalie Golda, who's now Natalie Benson, she coaches with Fresno State now. I mean, she was my on that youth team now, and she was also my roommate at the Olympic Games. Which I would have like, we don't know what's going to happen. So it was really cool that you get to meet the people along the way, also that you're going to meet down the line and play with. And so that was my introduction. And then the Team USA connection happened actually after I graduated from UCLA. I skipped the junior team. I went and traveled and didn't like try out for it at all. I went and traveled to France actually for a minor in French with UCLA. So I had that opportunity. Love the travel piece. So that spurred my passion for travel, as did sport. And it wasn't until afterwards and after playing in Australia for a couple seasons that a former teammate of mine had actually encouraged me to reach out to the coach of Team USA to say, hey, is there an opportunity? So again, there's that connection and reaching out saying, hey, I'm interested. Is there an opportunity to try out? What would that look like? And so that wasn't until after college.
I am a massive proponent of women in professional sports, obviously, but I have started hearing this kind of mindset given to youth sport and even collegiate women that essentially says enjoy these 4 years of college because there is no opportunity for you after college in this sport.
Mm-hmm.
Which I think it's a terrible mindset to have because it does not encourage change and opportunity. But aside from that, when you're looking at opportunities to play outside of the US, how do you approach that kind of culture shift? Because you know there isn't an opportunity right now to play in the States.
Mm-hmm. And are you speaking specifically about the culture shift and how to prepare for the culture shift or how to actually
Yeah.
find opportunities?
Yeah. I mean, kind of a two-headed monster of an answer.
Yeah, it is, isn't it? Like, how do you find your way? And I think it's mine was again serendipitous in that I had a teammate at UCLA who was Australian. And so she had encouraged people to go out there. And I really actually took it very literally and went out to go play in Australia. And so, and it is obviously a culture shift anywhere you go. And it's the beautiful thing about sports, it's universal. It's I mean, I'm currently, recording this right now in South Africa, and I'm seeing, and there's a soccer ball behind me. And, my kids are playing soccer with kids. And whether you speak the same language or not, I mean, there's this connection that you have when you're playing sports. So there's an automatic in, I think, when you are playing a sport, and then you learn the language along the way, or you learn the customs and cultures along the way, which is really beautiful. And you hopefully, go in with an open mind to learn these experiences. So that's a gift. And I hope that there's more opportunities now. I mean, I've learned about opportunities like there's even groups that help with, say, for example, to help you get your master's afterwards and go continue to play. I'm going to mention Team Gleese is a group that brings, you can for free, you go connect with for free as in like the company is free of charge to work with, but they can connect you with to go. So you can go to continue playing volleyball, for example, over in the UK and still get your master's, which is an amazing program and opportunity. So I'm hoping that there's more organizations that are offering that too. So it doesn't always have to be just serendipitous like mine.
So, can you give me the timeline from graduating from UCLA to the beginning of 2007? And you were 26 in 2007?
Oh, that's a great question. I think right around there. Yeah.
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 So that's a pretty sizable chunk of time from graduating to the World Championship and the Pan Ams and the World League golds. What were you doing
Yeah.
in that time span?
Yeah, so I graduated in 2003 from UCLA and then went to Australia for two different seasons, came back to the US in between through 2005. And that's when I started with Team USA. They had just come off, the 2004 Olympic Games. And so I started training with them during the summertime. And there wasn't any official training, if I remember, like during that specific year from 2005 to 2006, for example. And my husband, I think we were still just dating at the time. We had met at UCLA and he played volleyball there. We've been together now for over 20 years. He wanted to play professional volleyball, and he had an opportunity to go out in Spain that year. So I actually followed him to Spain. And while he was playing professional volleyball there, I trained in water polo, just went to the local pool, trained, and then went to Madrid and played with a team there, and then continued with Team USA during the summertime in 2006. Missed the traveling team, so didn't make it there, which was hard, obviously. And then continued though, stayed in the area working, and then also training, and then eventually made the team for 2007, which was also the Pan Am Games too during that same summer span. Mhm.
I mean, 2008 or 2007 was an incredible year for you. You were just collecting gold medals all over the world. Did you have any
Yeah.
idea that you were going to have a rather illustrious next 2.5 years?
Gosh, I like the way you put that. It feels really good and reflection. It's like, wow, I'm feeling gratitude for the experience. I'm for this conversation and for the experience
I
I
mean, like
had.
I have all of your
Yeah.
accolades here, and like from 2006 to 2009, you were crushing it.
It was amazing. And I had no idea, I think at the time, I'm going to say we, because the team, what we were accomplishing, what we were doing, just the expansiveness of it. And I mean, yeah, golds. I mean, gosh, it's amazing. It's freaking amazing. So I'm so grateful for it. Yeah, it's huge. And it was so hard on so many levels, but beautiful at the same time.
How many? goalkeepers traveled to Beijing? Was it you and an alternate? Was it just you?
Two. Yeah. Betsy Armstrong, starting goalkeeper, and then myself. Yeah. So two of us. Mhm.
I mean, you were 27 at your at the Olympics in Beijing. What was that experience like? I mean, I'm 27 right now, and that's incredible.
Yeah. It's wild because I felt at the time, I remember feeling a bit like one of the older gals, even though it was my first Olympics. I was a newbie in that way, but it's still, in this grand scheme of water polo players, I was on the older side and it was a mix. And I, had a husband by then, it was like, I felt like older or something. But at the same time, I felt so new and naive of like, what is this experience like? It was so grand. How do I navigate it? How do I navigate all the media and at the time, social media wasn't as big of a thing. I remember some people were on Facebook, not all of us were. So it was a very different thing happening than what is happening now, obviously, what people are navigating around social media or just the experience, whatever age they are. But yeah, it felt amazing. It felt grand. And at the same time, it was still emotionally and physically hard. I was so worn down by that point. It was like, I want to experience this moment. And I'm so burnt out right now because I've pushed myself so hard. What do I do? Like, I want to be grateful for this in this moment, but I'm having a really hard time. It was a very, very mix of experience for me, mix of emotions, and still needing to show up as a team player, which also is hard sometimes when you're having your own internal challenges, right? It was like a full spectrum experience, I'll say. But the cusp of the word I always do say is it's surreal still at the same time. It's surreal because it's like such a grand experience. Mhm.
I I don't know if you had written it on your website or where or someone had quoted you as saying this, but you there was a sentence on a website that essentially said Jaime Komer, world champion and eventual burnout. And
Eventual?
I think it was on
Yeah.
your website and like the phrasing was so funny because like there was a paragraph that had talked about all of your accomplishments and then it was like yeah and she burnt out like after this incredible career like it led to burnout and that's what exactly what you're saying right now. I mean when you have this career that spans over a decade, how do you stop burnout and how do you handle it when it does happen?
Oh, what a fun question. I love exploring those questions and I explore them now all the time because I mean, that's like literally epitome, like the space of my work now is like, getting to know who you are at a deeper level so you don't burn out. So you can make those choices to, you know, when to stop or when to pause, how to pause, and you give yourself permission to pause, whatever pause means to you, whether that's, taking a pause to literally take a break from your sport or to say whatever you need to do. So I think that that's such a beautiful question to explore and something I've been exploring and teaching in that way. Because I think for me, I didn't know how to stop. It was like burnout during it. And I was like, oh, wait, what's this? What is this I'm feeling? What's this experience? Is this okay? you know, yeah.
I mean even with your background in psychology, did you know how to handle those emotions?
Oh, absolutely not. No. I didn't know what to do with them at all. Having emotions, I think that there were these underlying themes. Like I do a lot of deep work now over the years, so this is personal, but I also help people through this, right? So doing you could call it shadow work, inner work, healing. There's so many different words around it or what it is, but it's essentially working on your own beliefs and your own beliefs of what you carry. So yeah, at the time, I think I had beliefs around like, well, I can't, say how I feel because if I say how I feel, then that might show that there's something wrong with me, that there's actually a belief that there's something wrong with an emotion, right? That's not strong. That's like everything's okay. And so, I had this belief that if I said how I was feeling, then that would mean that there's weakness. And if weakness, then that means you might be cut from a team. So essentially everything would lead to like it was a survival instinct, this protection mechanism for within me at the time of I can't express it. And I didn't feel like I had a space to do it either. I didn't have a space like a group space where I could show up and say, this is what I'm feeling. This is what I'm experiencing right now. This is what I'm working with. And I need some tools to help me work with this. Right. Um, I was looking for them at the time, the tools, but I didn't really understand what I was looking for either. I don't think yet. So, which was huge. And that's one reason I think I love tools. I love making tools, creating tools, finding tools, gathering them. I mean, like more like tangible ones, sure, but intangible, like ones, practical ones. How do we actually process our emotions? How do you process your feelings of guilt right now in this moment, or fear or doubt? And what's your fear-based, thinking like? How do you navigate that? How do you check in and know what's true to you? Like all these questions would come up, but not when I was training. When I was training, I was so in it that I didn't know those beliefs existed yet. The beliefs around like, I can't say anything because if I say anything, then I might get cut from the team. That type of, fear, which is just a personal thing. It wasn't maybe not even true on the outside, but just, within me, that's what I was working with.
I have interviewed a fair amount of Team USA athletes from Rio on for this
Mhm.
podcast. And one of the things that they always kind of laud is the USOPC's mental health practitioners and their directory and the ability of these athletes when they're struggling to get help ongoing. What
Mhm.
was the situation like surrounding Beijing and the impact of sports psychology on that time period? That was kind of before this athlete mental health dialogue had started. So if you needed help as a Team USA athlete, could you get that?
Ah, great question. And, I'll just say right now, anything I am sharing is just from my perspective of my own, like what my own lens of what was actually, what I thought was available or what I know, maybe something else was totally available and I just didn't know it.
Right.
Um, at the time we did have a sports psychologist, which was key. And that was so helpful. We had a sports psychologist, that I was able to speak with, anybody was able to speak with, which was so, so, so special. That was kind of what I knew was available at the time. And then afterwards, after training and after the games, there was career transition support. I don't believe that there was mental health support yet. And we were at the cusp. I think it was at the cusp of that, conversation. Let's have that conversation and what's really actually needed for us. So yeah, very grateful for sports psychology support though.
Did you find that you were implementing any of what you had learned in your bachelor's and master's in to your life as an athlete?
Mm.
Or were you so in the moment that you weren't thinking about that side?
Yeah, thanks for asking that. I think upon reflection, my bachelor's in psychology, for me, it really focused on connecting with or learning about people. And I wasn't quite aware of how it worked for me, myself, like how to work with my own emotions, for example, how to navigate them or Um, and it was my master's, though, in health and wellness coaching that really helped me understand that practice, around mindfulness, self-compassion, about being a healing presence for yourself and for others, how to really, be aware of what your emotions are and be curious about them. That didn't happen though. That master's degree didn't help it happen until after I was retired. So it's helped me immensely just in my life, also as a parent and also in my professional world as a coach, a group facilitator. And though I really do wish I had those skills, yes, as an athlete, I think they're, I mean, paramount to one's success. I think in sport and life, just to be able to navigate, connect with yourself and being more in tune with, what's true to you, and also to navigate the day in and day out, just emotions and experiences and working with them with more ease and grace.
I think it's interesting, like when I interview the younger group of athletes who are just now making Team USA teams or just now
Mhm.
getting into college, and they have entire support teams for nutrition and strength and conditioning and mental health and physical health. And They have this entire support staff behind them, and they still struggle. I mean, it's interesting to look at the evolution of support staff. Um, what do you see as the biggest difference between what you had available then and the conversations that are happening now?
Mm. Yeah. The support that we had, that we had support, some support around, yes, nutrition. I remember sleep support, definitely strength and training and conditioning. Um, and I think it's mostly the difference now is the mental health piece. Absolutely. A bigger space for that. Um, and maybe more a holistic approach to training, whatever that looks like. And it's different for every national governing body, every athlete, every coach, I imagine. Um, and hmm, yeah, I think that's the biggest thing. I'm also going to say though, you really touched on something, right? We can have a lot of support, which is so wonderful, right? It takes a village, or not just to raise a child, but to also like go to the Olympics. It takes a village to make that happen. There's so many people involved in it, to help that. And either way, though, it's that person, the person who's in the middle doing that experience, having that experience, the athlete, you really touched on something super important there, right? That we can still struggle even though we have that support. And really, I think you're tapping into that, this question around what, how does that person know what they need at any given moment, what's right for them? And how to really be aware of that. Do they need maybe a shift in their nutrition? Do they need a pause? Do they need to step out of the game for a moment? Do they need to go full on? How do they know what to do? And is that something can we support and help cultivate there?
How did you find mindfulness and this mind-body connection?
Mm. When I was considering retiring, so after the 2008 games, I was considering at that point. I stayed on till 2010, and at 2008, I'd had my sixth surgery. I think I had had four shoulder surgeries by then, and two hip surgeries. I had one more after that in 2009. And I remember it was after the games. I was still on crutches and I was looking for a job. We need to work with certain, we need to work. So, and or money. So I remember I was looking on Craigslist and I found a job for yoga for athletes, essentially teaching yoga for athletes. It was a studio that also had indoor cycling and then yoga. And that's what opened the doors for me to the yoga world, in a very approachable way for me at the time. And so I began teaching, and then that was literally the launching pad for me around this concept of mindfulness, doing whether it's movements or answering questions and journaling, or asking questions of yourself, or being in workshops where people are guiding you and facilitating for you, essentially to be aware of what you're thinking, aware of what you're feeling, aware of what you're physically sensing, and aware of what your thought stream is based off of that, right? Any judgments, any criticism, what just in being aware of your experience, and to be able to do that without judgment, with kindness, with compassion. And so that started my journey. I have, continuing to grow in the holistic wellness field, and that launched me into, so many different areas around nutrition and Pilates and eventually life coaching, health and wellness coaching. And that I remember taking a course in mindfulness, and there was this test you had to take in our master's degree. It was like self-compassion. What's your level of self-compassion? What's your level of mindfulness? And I had a 1-year-old son at the time, and I was taking this, and my scores were like, self-compassion was like absolutely none. It was so low. I was like, oh. And mindfulness was like, not that mindful. Like, oh, we got some work to do apparently around like the self-love area, self-compassion and mindfulness. Here we go. So that was a big wake-up call for me too, to actually go through that process to take it. I believe those tests are free online, I imagine too. No.
I think it's really a testament to the athlete experience, truly, that like as soon as you decided you were going to retire, you started going, oh my gosh, like, do I love myself? Like, what is this? What is this feeling? I say that like some of the pillars of every interview that I do, whether they're 21 or 35 or whatever sport they're in, whatever their athlete experience looked like, we always end up talking about athlete identity. Now, whether that's while
Mm.
you're playing, the transition away from your sport, or 15 years down the line when you're still using pieces of your athletic experience and your athlete mindset in whatever you're doing, you kind of transitioned right into a different side of your athletic being with the yoga and the Pilates and the spin. Do you consider yourself a lifelong athlete?
Mm. I've done a lot of work around identity and in terms of like, what you feel like you're connected to. And I think of life like a spiral, if you will. It's not a linear line like, how some people say your career is like from one dot to another, right? To me, I see more of like a spiral. And I want to share that visual because if you imagine like the dots on your spiral are part of things you've experienced, being an athlete has always been a part of my experience. It always will be. And I love that. And I've learned so much from that experience and it's been a gift. And I think, and to me, it just helps me build upon and grow from it. So even though at the time I may have felt like I lost, like, oh no, I'm no longer an athlete. Who am I? Or it might have been, I'm asking those questions. We all do when we go through big life transitions, right? We're asking, who am I now? To me, that was just a sign for me that, oh wow, I was apparently, connecting my identity to my outside circumstances, which is normal. We all do it. Okay. So how does that feel? Do I like that feeling? Do I want to adjust that feeling? Right? What do I control in this situation? How do I want to feel? And so that transition itself helped me, decide, okay, I want to learn more about not just, okay, health and wellness. I want to learn about who I am through my life experiences, including and adding to being an athlete, because that's just, yes, it's part of my life. And now me being an athlete looks more like jumping in the pool in the morning and swimming around like a dolphin. It's fun and playing with my kids. And it looks different, but it's always going to be part of who I am. If I consider that idea of being a spiral, your life is like a spiral, an upward spiral, if you will. So it's just building upon everything that you've already been.
I think I really like the way you phrased that because you could have so easily said everything you've already done, but you said everything you've already been. And
Mm.
I think that that puts the onus on you as an individual to accomplish for the sake of you, as opposed to for the sake of outside tasks or influence. Like, what have you been?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
how do
Are you
you
asking? Yeah.
qualify that? Yeah, I mean, like, esoterically, but also directly,
Yeah.
like, how do you qualify what you've been?
Oh, it's so fun. I love making little worksheets from this. Like I do. I like, oh, what have we been? And like thinking about there's this practice. I call it the authentic key. I think of it like an authentic key because it's say if you have a map of your life, right? Of what this map is like your authentic map. How do you define health on your terms? How do you define success on your terms? How do you define happiness and joy on your terms? What's that mean to you? What's it look like to you, right? You get to make your own map of the world you're exploring, meaning your life. And if you think of like a key that explains everything, like how do you actually make sense of this map you're looking at? I think of that like as the labels. So anyone could do this practice. It's like write down all the things that you've been defined by, right? That you've been, or maybe that you still are. And that could be even also labels as in like, I'm labeled as a wife or a partner or a mom. It could be labeled as a descriptive one, is like, I'm been labeled as friendly or mean or whatever descriptive word comes up. So it could be an actual like noun type of thing or like a job or life role you have. But then what's really fun to me is when you think about what you've been, right? Those are things that maybe you've been or you are. I really do think you get to actually kind of make who you are. You get to decide who you are. So this practice, it goes a little bit off the topic of what you're asking, but it's I'm hoping it's a fun one to offer, hopefully for people who want to do it, is those are labels, right? Things we've been. And some of those may have emotional attachments to them, meaning we may feel good about some of them, we may feel not so good about some of them. We may have an emotional connection to each one. But one thing you can explore is, well, who are you without those labels? Say you take all that off, you know, ignore the labels. Who are you beyond that? And just write down what comes up. And you might be surprised what comes up for you, like the amazingness of the words that come out of you when you think about who am I beyond that stuff. And all that stuff's great. Or if any of it's not great, just cross it off. But anything that feels good for you, keep it. But who are you beyond that? So that's, I mean, something we can play with too about who we've been and who we are, really.
What are some keywords that would signify to you as someone who works with this population who's trying to find themselves that they're on the right track?
What are the keywords?
Yeah, so like if I was to define myself, if you were to do that exercise with me,
Mhm.
and I was to define myself as a daughter and a podcast host and determined or like kind, smart, what are some keywords that would tell you that this person is actively trying to look for the good in themselves?
Ooh, I think I'd find that out by asking for follow-up questions. Is, which words here that you write out resonate with you? Which ones feel true to you? Which ones no longer resonate with you? Or which ones no longer feel right to you? Or, and depending on your answer, what comes up, you know, if there's any emotional ones, we can kind of see what are you working through at the time. You write out these different, you know, labels or roles. And I think when we talk and we connect, I mean, I think that's part of the magic is when you're you're talking with somebody and you're asking them questions and you can sense, okay, this person is real, feeling really good about where they're at. They're not asking any questions about it. They're like, this is who I am. Boom. And they say it how it is. And then, sometimes when we're doing that type of exercise, we're like, I'm all this and I see all these things, but I don't know what that means. Or, so if I ask you, what do you notice when you look at this? Your answer, I feel like, is going to share where you're at on your journey or how you're feeling, at least in this moment, about your journey.
What are some deeper words that signal to you that this person is in a good place? I mean, it's easy to be like, I'm happy, I'm smart. But
Mm.
what are some deeper adjectives that would signal to you that a person is actively like on their self-love journey?
Ooh, yeah. I think the words that come up, true to myself, authentic. Mm, those are the top words that come out. I think it's that this practice of like, well, what's true to you and what feels authentic to you. So if you're actually labeling that already for yourself, I'm like, whoa, okay, let's explore that. Wow, amazing. Because to me, authenticity is very much aligned or, connected to self-love. You're taking care of yourself, you're loving yourself when you are being true to yourself. And you're being true to yourself when you're being authentic in all areas of your life. Not easy at all, of course. We're all on that journey, myself included, right? Exploring what that even means or what that even looks like. But I think that those are, yeah, keywords that I feel like are deeply connected with the self-love space.
When someone enlists you to help change their mindset, to help cognitively rearrange their coping mechanisms, where
Mm.
do you even begin?
Oh, yeah. Where do you begin? I mean, there's right where they are, right where that person is. Here's an example, like in group, I do this actually one-on-one, but I also like to do it in groups so people can actually hear where people are at. But I'll take people through a visual and a visualization. It's very simple. It's approachable. Anyone's welcome to experience it. You don't have to have any meditation or visualization experience to do it. But I have you close your eyes, let our bodies relax a little bit. And eventually I ask the question about, okay, given everything in your life circumstance right now, exactly as your life is right now in this very moment, knowing what you know about your life, how would you see that as a visual? What does that look like as an image? Imagining you're walking into the scene of your life as it is, but it's descriptive, like essentially like a metaphor, but you're seeing it as an image. What type of image shows up for you? And I've done this with so many different types of groups and various ages and professional experiences, men and women. And I'm always so amazed at the variety of experiences that we have of where we feel like we're at in our life. And what that does is it gets us out of our head space, this thinking time space, right? The logic space, and into this creative, imaginative, intuitive space and the heart space too, about where do you actually feel like you're at? And people's descriptions and visuals, what comes up for them ends up describing, how they actually feel like where they're at. If you think of like a map, whether you're at a mall or whether you're on a hiking trail, I resonate more with the hiking trail, so I'll stick with that one. But like a hiking trail, and you see the red dot that says you are here, right before you go off on the trail. It's like that visual helps you figure out and helps me figure out where are you, because it doesn't matter where I think you are in life or on your life journey. What matters is where you think you are and where you feel like you are. And let's work with that. And that will bring up, so say in your visual, if you bring up, I feel like I'm in this middle spot and I'm coming out of this like tunnel and it's really dark in there. And now I feel like, but there's like five different trails but I don't know which one to pick. And I feel like they're all covered up. I mean, that says so much, right? And we can go so much into it. And especially if we are in a group setting, we can hear each other's stories and realize, oh my gosh, we are so not alone in what we're experiencing. Even if the visuals are different, there's so many parallels with everybody's story of what we're going through. And so we feel more belonging and supported and heard and seen with whatever we're going through. It's a really fun place to start. If anyone wants to experience it, I have that on my Substack, a free audio. It's like 4.5 minutes long. It just takes you through that little visual and it's just to experience, and you can draw it out or journal it, whatever works for you.
What does your personal image look like?
Ew, it changes all the time. It's really fun. When I was, let's see, in 2022, when my family, we had sold most of our things, we were living in Washington State. We went and lived in Portugal. We were doing a year of travel. Actually, we didn't know how long it would be. It was like so up in the air. It was literally like, let's sell most of our things, put some in storage, and just go. And I did a visual there with some people, and mine at the time was it was gray, just gray. Like I was in the unknown, total unknown, the middle of transition. So, I mean, I've coached people through transitions, so it's kind of like not the ending of something, not the beginning of something, but the in between. That in between phase that's all unknown, and you don't know where you are. Um, and I had in one hand a compass, a very simple metal compass, and in the other hand a quill feather pen thing. And that was at that point, because to me, I needed to work on connecting with my own inner compass. I had no idea where I was. I felt like I was lost, and at that time, and I needed to write it out with whatever I was experiencing. But since then, it's been in multiple places too. Sometimes in the water, or sometimes I had an upgrade of that visual actually one time. I had a like upgraded compass and a better quill. So it changes, which is really fun to see what comes up because it can come up change every month, right?
Can you kind of run through what kind of um, mechanisms you have if someone was to want to work with you?
Mechanisms as in ways to work
As in
together.
like offerings.
Oh,
from
yeah.
your personal business to someone who is looking to find that mindfulness?
Yeah. Thanks for asking. I mean, one of the easy ways for free is, subscribing to my Substack. You can find me through Jaime Komer. And then you're going to get, writings and the podcast. I'm actually just switching over my podcast. I have a podcast called Intentional Life. And I'm going to be merging that onto the Substack. So you're going to get everything there, which it will be available on Spotify and Apple and all those. So that is an easy, fun way. There's a couple self-paced courses on my website as well. One is for your inner compass, which helps you connect with your values and figure out what your values are all about and how to map them and actually take intentional action and live them in your life. Because everybody has one of a kind values. And how do we actually figure those out and what they are? And there's also a course for wayfinding and more connecting with your North Star about how you want to feel, when you wake up in the morning. How do you want to feel in your daily life? Connecting with that aspect. So there's self-paced spaces. There's groups if people have groups or communities or teams that they want to go through more like group work, like kind of like the visuals that I mentioned, visualizations that they can contact me too um, through my website. I call those campfires because there are times where we come together around a more symbolic campfire, maybe a candle, but we come around in circle. And then there's also one-on-one coaching space too. And I'm available for workshops. I mean, I'm doing a workshop next month around manifesting and affirmations and, all these things that do come up when people are going through change and we're figuring out, okay, I want to understand myself better. How do I do that? So I love creating programs and resources. So I also love collaborating with people on creating programs, whether it's asynchronous programs or actually, live time virtual programs for teams and groups of people. It's a lot of fun.
What is the demographic that normally seeks you out?
Mm. It's varied over the time, even though the cusp of my work over, 15 years has been about you understanding who you are at a deeper level. But the modalities have changed, right? Yoga or nutrition. I mean, all those help you figure out who you are. The people who have seeked me out, it has ranged from, people in business, top performers in business, professional athletes retiring out of sport and connecting with who they are. Parents, that's been a newer one, just given my experience of being a parent and also with traveling because my family is kind of digital nomad family-ish. I guess you say that's kind of what we're doing. People who want to, create their own intentional life about whatever that looks like for them. It doesn't have to involve travel, whatever it means for you. So working with parents and what I find the themes are though is typically people who have experienced this and very ambitious career, whether it's sport or whether it's business or whether it's just their own mentality, their own mindset, whatever they've been doing. And now they're at that point where they are shifting or they've already shifted and they want to, you know, bring more mindfulness or balance and harmony into their life, and how do you have more fun along the way, or self-love along the way. We're not just going for the destination, we're also enjoying the journey and making the most of that journey experience. So there's that definite theme there that I notice with everybody I seem to work with.
That is the end of my questions for today. Is there anything about getting to where you are or your current practice that you think that I missed that you would like to talk about? The floor is yours.
Thanks for offering. Ah, it's I think in my role, I'm usually a listener, a guide, uh, meaning that I'm listening to people and then often reflecting what I'm hearing, or I'm guiding people through visualizations, and I'm holding space for people. So it's not often that I feel like I'm giving advice or in that very direct guidance. Even in podcasts, it's like, wow, I'm talking more than usual. This is different. And so I would love to share. I think this is something I know I always would love hearing at any age for myself. And I've heard that is resonates and it seems important for people along the way. But I want to support and maybe just be that voice if you who's listening, anyone who's listening, if you're questioning yourself, I want to let you know that you to trust your inner wisdom. I think that sometimes, there's so much outer noise and so many things that we think we should do, or maybe distractions of maybe, expectations of who we should be or what we should do, that I really do believe you have the answers within you. So really finding spaces for yourself where you feel really good and where you feel really supported. And I just want to be that voice to say, hey, yeah, go find that spot. The people, whoever it is, whether it is a one-on-one person, working with me, or whether it's a group of people, a place where you can show up and kind of explore who you are. And if you want to do that, and to really trust your inner wisdom. I'm literally wearing a shirt that says that. So trust your wisdom. It seems appropriate for me to say that right now. You've got it inside of you. You're amazing. So that's just what I wanted to add.